Who you gonna call? Mythbusters. Well, I had a dream last night. I'm just waking up. Whoops. Just waking up. Just waking up. Morning, number one. So what's the biggest myth? You know, the biggest myth is that you die. I don't think you die. I don't think you die. Now your avatar, this guy here, his body, this might die. But I don't think we die. And that's because number two is that we are this, our avatar. No, it's not that. And the idea of the soul, that's myth number three. It's not the soul. The soul is something like a driver's license plate owned by a church. You got to do what they say. It's their laws. You got to run by their rules, or you go to hell and suffer in eternity. Well, we're all told by all our religions that our God is all-knowing and loving. Well, if our God is all-knowing and loving, then why would we even be here? Because we're bound to fail. Your Sensei Al-Bab, is a total moron. So I can bound for eternal damnation. Myth number 4. No. So what I think, and what I have just had a dream about, and that's kind of what I kind of, oh boy, that was a dream. Got to think about that one. And then I went into state. I went to my Akashic record and looked at it there, right? Now, just a little sidebar here. I've been bringing you guys into state to show you the tools of the trade of the shamanic, psychosocial, cultural, forensic, anthropologic alchemist, right? That's like a Full Metal Jacket. So the sidebar is you should, when you wake up, you meditate, and then you go into state, and you put your dream into your Akashic record, and there you look at it, right? And you got your librarian and your animal totem and your guardian angel to help you out to understand that dream. Freud and all the rest of the psychotherapeutic universe basically said your dreams are that little mirror of what's going on in your life and in your head. So if you can't do that, put your dreams in your Akashic record. What you do is you have this cute little smartphone right here. And before your feet hit the ground, before you forget that dream, you push the record button on your phone and you go, wow, I had this dream about blah, 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 blah. Now it's in your device, right? And you got it there. And you go back and look at it, listen to it. And Freud, when we took notes in school, wasn't to remember. We listened to the teacher, we wrote it down, and we go, oh, that's what it's about. And you hear something, you write it down, you have what is known as a Gestalt, German word for lightning understanding. So, so if you can't put the dream in the Akashic record, you put it on your phone. Go back, listen to it, write it down as you listen, because you can stop it, go back, stop it, go forward, stop it, and you'll go, wow, that's what that's about. Again, Akashic record's best because you got a lot of assistance. You see it right in front of you in your Akashic record on the screen, and you got the 28 little screens telling you different angles of it. So, and then you have your guides to give you a hand. And you can go into, your sanctuary of your own choosing and find lots of help there. So, back to the dream I had about to mythbusters. Who you gonna call? And the myth of death, right? And heaven and hell and punishment and the God that your religion tells you about. And that God gives the authority to the, unseen hand and the powers that shouldn't be and the sock puppets to rule your life. And so here we are at this little crossroads, and we're always in a crossroads. Every morning we wake up, we're at a crossroads. We make these decisions. And some are good, some are bad, right? Some are, whatever. But they're all there to teach us a lesson. Why are we in our avatar? What are we doing here? We're here to learn about who and what we are. Last night was, to get to know your real self, right? And, we saw that right in front of us. And it was kind of good. And that Johnny came to visit. And, we had like, whoa. And everyone was, making comments. It was good chat. And, in the chat, I really need for you guys not be what you think you should be in the chat. You need to, like every time I do this, I go into state, things pop out of my mind, and that's what we talk about. And that's like, I'm being as me as I can be, right? I try not to, pretend. So, what I think death is just transitional periods, and this life we lead is an illusion, but it's so real that we think it's real. And I think I've seen a number of times when I keep saying I'm amazed that we're still here, because I've been around enough to see and be at places where I saw things that would say to me, wow, any second now, we're going to blow ourselves up or, do something stupid, because I do it every day, something stupid. And, we seem to just skate past that one. So, again, this is about us learning, and not just me, and not just you, but all our relations. And that includes the sock puppets, the powers that shouldn't be, and the unseen hand. All of those folk are our relations. And it's not like all the mechanisms of all the pictures, all the stories that YouTube tells us. I mean, those are just like, What is your tube? It's a tube. It's your tube. YouTube. You're on the tube. It's what is the tube? It's the tube here in this dynamic. It's a TV show. It's a TV show. A screwed, a scripted illusion. A little story. But not as good as you know what the griot does. I mean, sometimes it is. There's some folk in TV land and YouTube land that really put down some pretty amazing stuff. But it's up to the individual to assess what that is and how they're going to use it. And if they're or they allow themselves to be manipulated into a fear-based reality, well, they're just playing in the hand of the unseen hand, And, whatever those morons think they're doing, oh, we're the Illuminati, we know what we're doing, oh, we've been given the power by God. Well, guys, God don't exist. The God that they are playing by is a joke. I mean, they're being played by somebody else. If they go by that one, the only God there is love's co-creation. And if you're not doing it with that, forget about it. So, here's my nice little, what I had as a dream is, so, wait, you are an energetic being living in a chemical bag of water, right? So when that chemical bag of water gets depleted or burnt out or run over by a bus or hit by an asteroid, your energetic body exists, and that's not this guy, right? And, so people, get into accidents and they lose limbs and they have this experience called phantom limb symptom or syndrome, right? And so, you lose your hand, but it still hurts. It still itches. And it's not there. So why is that? It's because your energetic body, your consciousness, actually the conscious, I keep saying, oh, and your consciousness is in some kind of server someplace. Well, that server is your energetic body, right? And so your energetic body still has your hand, right? And then a lot of people who have near-death experiences, go to the light, kind of almost go to the other side, and they see their loved ones, right? Oh, there's Uncle Bob and Aunt Tilly and Mom and Dad and my sweet, high school girlfriend who got killed right in front of me at the mall. And there they are, and they look just like you remember them, right? Not a glowing pitch, but just like you remember them. Because if your consciousness that's in a light body, an energetic vessel, is hanging out here for a lifetime, you get used to this look, right? And I get used to the energetic feeling of Mom and Dad and my sweet little girlfriend and Aunt Tilly. So when I see their energetic body, I see them that I remember, right? So that's what I think that's all about. And that energetic body is also a avatar because it's a body, right? It's just in another frame of reference. It's just in an energetic place where our consciousness is hanging. That is the server, right? That energetic body. And there is another ascension, another step up, right? And so right now, I remember the 50s, right? There was the beat scene, right? And they were talking, there was Alice Bailey and the Theosophical Society and a number of interesting little groups. And they were talking about the new age. The Aquarian age was coming. We're leaving Pisces, right? And and then, Senator Joe McCarthy put the vice grips on if you weren't just the American, America, we're making America great right here by getting rid of them commies, right? It's fine that we let all these Nazis into our government, but not them commies. And the commies that were here in America were union activists, right? And the socialists, they were like Bernie. Bernie's like, Uncle Bob, Uncle Bernie. They weren't like the commies from Russia, right? You know, and the commies at Russia didn't even come from Russia. They were exported from England into because I want to get rid of the Tsar. He's too much of a competition for our corporate state. So this stuff just keeps playing over and over again with just a little click of the notch, right? And then the 60s happened, and the beginning of the 60s were boring. And Jack Kennedy showed up in 63, and it was like, 60, but he was, gangster son. He was, part of the machine, you want to call it the deep state or the swamp. He's the most swampy guy you could get. And then, because of he was you know, a sick kid, sick, you know, young man. He got run over by a Japanese destroyer chasing girls. He was a busted up dude, right? But he was, there was this Forrestal, right? He was the Secretary of Defense, and he's, all of this stuff about, flying saucers just didn't start at Roswell. We had bits and pieces of those ships that had been falling out of the sky for a long time. And we actually we had this little event. You should check it out. It's called the L.A. Lights. So when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor, which was caused by us, we kind of forced them into it, and we had broken their codes. We had this group called Magic, and they were code breakers. They were people in the OSS. They were people in the naval intelligence, army intelligence. But naval intelligence has always been, because the Navy is the oldest military thing we really have that has had it together. So, there's this thing, LA Lights, where they shot down, a thing, or a thing came over LA, a gigantic flying saucer. And, everyone was freaked out about, the Japs, and they thought the Japs were coming to the West Coast. That's why they rounded up the Japs in America and put them in a concentration camp. But in reality, that was just another bait and switch. There was a Democratic politician in California, and, FDR was a little worried about winning the next election. And so the guy in California said, I will deliver you California if we've just passed a bill in California where we're going to round up these Japanese, but we need the federal government in on this one. We can't do this. We need the authority. But we've made a bill that makes it legal in California, but we have to have the Army do it and have the backing of the federal government. You do that. Hey, Brandon. Mr. Young. And because once we get rid of the Japanese, I am going, because he was into real estate, I'm going to own all of their real estate. That's part of the law. That's what I wrote in there, that we could buy them out for, 1/10 of a penny on the dollar. Well, we put them in a concentration camp. We're going to make them pay for it. So anyway, that was that. So that, California was so wigged out that they did stuff like that. So when this gigantic thing hovered over L.A., everyone freaked out. Oh my God, that's the Japanese are coming! Ah, no, it was, extraterrestrial, dimensional. Who knows what they were? But it was a big ship. And, so they had anti-aircraft guns over LA and big spotlights. Hey, it's Hollywood. And so they like trained those lights on that ship and just plastered it, but it had a field around it. So bing, bing, bing. So about 20 something people died that night from the shells that fell down and blew up their house, not from the, alien spaceship. And either chunks of it fell off or there were little ones that got whacked, but they picked up a chunk of, as Art Bell used to say, art's parts, um, and brought it back to, the central. What the heck is that? It was all about it. Yep. So, so that occurred, right? So we've had parts a lot. We've had a lot of parts. So, but when Roswell happened, I mean, we not only had parts, we had a number of ships, and a couple of them were pretty much in place, and we had bodies, and a couple still alive, and so we took that away in '47, and then they hundreds were flying over the Capitol. I mean, this was like whoa, and this is the '50s, so something had to be done. So what did we do? This was, as many politicians say, you know, I'm never going to let a catastrophe not be an opportunity to take advantage for me and put me to make more money and more power, right? So what did they do? They passed a bill turning the United States into the national security state, right? Which, came from the Nazi boys who came here from, Operation Paperclip. And we basically were turned into the military, industrial, banking, education, and media control state, right? So, TV became, we had Gunsmoke and I Love Lucy, and, then we hit the 60s and we went, so that was like Truman, Eisenhower, and we went from World War II, the Korean War, and a whole bunch of other wars. We overthrew governments in South America, and Iran is the biggest one. You know what BP stands for? British Persian oil, right? And that's because Britain, after World War One, took over all of the oil in Iraq, Syria, and Iran. Now, Iran was a little more tough because, they were the Persian Empire, had been around thousands of years. They had a real culture. Arabs, not so much. They were just guys on camels out in the woods, out in the deserts. So it was easy to find the most corrupt person and say, we're going to make you king, and we're going to see, here on the napkin, this is your new country. So, again, everything that we're going through is kind of a reflection of what the spiritual situation. And, who's going to tell you? Mythbusters, your Sensei Al Bob, so we're busting this myth. And it all, what all of this brouhaha going on in our planet has been going on since day one, right? The 16,000 years that this brand of human has been being the puppet of, the unseen hand, whether it's extra, the insectoids or dimensional, lads and lasses, like the Greeks had the gods, What do you think those guys were? Guys coming from the sky. So, what the real story is that all of us have to take control of our life and not be led by the situation. Otherwise, constantly we are put into the wearing blender of, problem action solution. The powers that shouldn't be go, we want this to be this way. Well, the mud puppets will never go for it. So, hey, we'll blow up the World Trade Center. And they'll be so scared, they'll let us do anything. They'll let us pass this thing called the Patriot Act, 17 zillion pages of how we're going to screw you. And we'll pass it in 3 hours. Who's going to read that? You know, who are you going to call? Mythbusters. And then we'll be in perpetual war. We've been in Mid East, Afghanistan and Iraq and Syria, last 20 years. Really? Your children are dying. Your husband died. Your wife died. Your mom and dad died. For what? So Boeing can make more money? You know? Use aerospace can make more money? Real pinheads could, own you? So everybody, so Donnie, so anyway, I'll go back to Kennedy. So he comes in, and he knew the whole thing about flying saucers because after he got run over by Japanese destroyer, they pasted him back together, sent him back home, and he worked for because his older brother who was going to be president got blown up, and so he's next in line, and but he's really beat up. So they send him all kinds of doctors. He's taking all kinds of pills, and he can only do, you know, easy stuff. And what is he goes to work for Forrestal. And when Germany fell and Operation Paperclip came into power, Forrestal went to Germany to see what the Germans had. The B-2s, the B-1s, all the other vengeance weapons and miracle technologies. And the guy who went along with him was Jack Kennedy, right? So there's a lot, photos. These guys take photos of everything. There's tons of photos of, 1945, 3 months after the war, the Allies are all over the place. The German soldiers are walking home from Germany, and Forstall's go all over Germany looking at this stuff and say, okay, we'll take this, this, and this. And oh, by the way, let's take all their gold. And oh, look at all those nice paintings. And, Jack was all down because his dad was a total stone cold gangster. Yep. Seymour Hirsch wrote a great book. Again, these guys, Hirsch is they all have, their opinion. I believe in this. Look, I read all these books. I talked to all these people. It's true. No, it's their belief structure. And we were kind of talking about that last night about how people's belief structures get shattered. And when that happens, either they grow a pair and, of ovaries and, step up, or they go for the rest of their life. They're traumatized. They're stuck in that trauma. And the longer you're stuck in that trauma, the longer you're going to be neurotic, right? So, and back in the day, it wasn't just tribes, it was clans. And that's the real thing that was important was your clan, because the tribe was like belonging to a city or a state, right? Clan was your mom and dad, your uncles, your grandma, then your uncles and aunts and moms and dad, best friend. You had this clan, right? And that's was all your relations, That's all those people took care of you. You just didn't have one mom and dad. You had the clan. The whole clan took care of you. You felt, always safe because, what happened to you happened to them. They're going to take care of you. If they're starving, you're starving. If they're eating, you're eating. So, that was the clan. We have to get, and that's what our cadre is our clan, right? And now every time something beautiful and real exists, it gets perverted. So when I say clan, what do you think of? You think of those pinheads with the sheets over their head, right? No, that's not the clan, right? They got that from that motif of the Klan. I'm safe amongst these guys. Not everybody else. Can't trust anybody else. Even the other Southerners can't trust them. Even the other, no, the Klan. So, see how all these are like myths, and I'm busting them as I speak, right? And what did I start out first with? Death, heaven, God, religion. Those are the four bigs, But they are the foundation that gives the hidden hand and the sock puppets and the powers that shouldn't be power over us. And how do they get that power over us? We give it to them. So Kennedy knew all about, you know, the aliens, all about technology, all about time travel, all about all of this, right? But he was still pretty busted up. So he's running for Congress, and you see him. He's like this thin, frail, wisp of guy. So they start pumping him through everything. They give him, all kinds of painkillers. They give him all kinds of steroids. He gets buff, But he realizes that he's got a limited time. He's he's not going to last too long. He's burning his candle at every end. And then he starts taking things like psychotropic drugs, and his chakras get blown open, and he's saying, "Oh wow, look, there's a whole nother universe here." His myths were busted big time. So when he becomes, you know, president, and he allows his gangster father to buy it, to, you know, steal it, to do. I mean, Nixon. The sad thing about Nixon was always the smartest guy in the room. Nixon, Jack Kennedy, Nixon, they're like mirrored image. Jack goes to, Harvard. Um, Dick goes to Podunk, And World War II goes, uh, Jack goes to the rear and drives around in a PT boat chasing girls. And Nixon's on a destroyer getting shelled, He was a real hero. Um, Jack, gets a plum job, seeing, in the catbird seat, seeing what it is. Nixon has to figure it out for himself. Jack came from, silver spoon in his mouth. Nixon came with a shit spoon in his mouth. So poor Dick, and your name is Richard, and everyone calls you Dick. And this poor guy, smartest guy in the room every time, and he was traumatized every freaking day of his life. So of course he's gonna, right? And he was used every day of his life, right? We all are, right? But it's what level on the pecking order we are, right? And you know, so you're gonna let yourself be used? No, because you'll have to come back over and over and over and over and over and over. Right now, I'm really hurting. I'm really in pain. But this is me every morning. And, after, doing my whole life, seeing all this stuff, having all these great teachers, sharpening up my pencil to have some real tools in my pencil case. What did I do when I was about 56, 58? I said, well, I've done all this stuff. What am I going to do? I kind of stumbled across an opportunity, that little crevice in the roots of the tree of life. I looked down and said, oh, look at that, the corporate world. And they're inviting me in. And I went in. And for 10 years, I worked for the desperate corporate lawyers. I swam in the swimming pool of the chocolate mousse and died. Right? But was not allowed to come back. I had to go through 5 years of extraordinary misery and losing everything that brought me here, to be your Sensei Al Bob. Okay, this is what I'm doing until I'm welcomed home. It's pretty obvious, and so to keep me on the straight and narrow, my body is pretty fried from all of the stuff I did up until the desperate lawyers, and then I turned the broiler on, and and there's no amount of lifting weights or trying to be 22 years old is going to fix this. What really fixes this is me meditating every morning and then going on the chat with you guys in the AM and at the PM. And that's what's keeping me alive, you know? That's what enables me to live like a millionaire on $300 a month, give or take, right? And it does better when you guys, give me a little gratuity. All my teachers said, Al, you can't charge, can't go, and this will be 19.99, and if you buy now, you'll get two. No, I can't do that. But I can be given a gratuity, you know, a gift, a tip to ensure proper service, right? So you can send me whatever you want to send me through Western Union and say, hey, I want to send it to Al, Martino, in Roanoke, Virginia. And then you contact me on my Gmail, the Dude Awake 42 Gmail, and say, hey, I'm sending you something, and the routing number is this. I get the routing number, and a couple of you have already done that, and thank you very much. Any bit is appreciated, and it works very good, right? And others have sent me gifts to my P.O. Box 1165, Vinton, Virginia, Vinton, 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 Virginia 24179, P.O. Box 1165, Vinton, Virginia. And you sent me all kinds of sweet cards with drawn pictures and boxes of jams you've made, and somebody sent me some carbon 60, which is really helping me out, really, really good. And some of that, you're just the best, right? So whatever you want to send me, I'm happy to receive, and I appreciate it deeply. And it keeps me, you want me to keep talking to you guys, it keeps, one day, where'd he go? Where'd he go? Well, I'm going home. But I'm pretty sure that I'm not going home until my job is finished, because pretty much everything I've ever had to do, I've had to, you know, complete. Now, I've completed it on my own weird way, but and when I say weird, that's a good thing. Not the sock puppet way, not the hidden hand way, not the powers that shouldn't do way. And I kind of dance around those guys. And men, girls, Sophia, all my relations, if you really want to be in power, if you really want a one world order, if you really want to have what your you know fake ass religions portend, just hire me as a consultant. And you have a cachet of you know of my adepts ready, willing, and to bring forth a love based on love's co-creation. Why I'm doing this is that what is needed is not a rebranding of the end of the world. What is needed is a vehicle that is based on an alternative aesthetic. See, we just keep rebranding the same brouhaha over and over and over and over. No, we need a new aesthetic. And I know because I work for you guys, there's a lot of you guys going. And the little passion play that's warming up in the bullpen with Donnie and the QA and the swamp and the dark forces, blah 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 blah. They're all the same gang. Those little cards that were handed out at H's whoop-de-doo or whatever the heck that was. What that was a little staged event. Oh, look, they're going to be arrested. Oh, look, they're scared. Oh, look, no, it's just a rebranding. And all the effort they've been doing there at Gitmo is like they're building a big. I mean, you ever there's some great images. I mean, Gitmo is the nicest part of Cuba, or one of the nicest parts. I mean, it's like the whole thing is a gigantic freaking beach. I mean, they took why they, after Castro had the revolution and kicked us out and brought the commies in, we got the best beachfront property. Hilton and all the, well, okay, we'll let them have that. We're taking this, right? So if they do send Hillary, lock her up. She's going to a nice place. And the hurricanes never seem to hit that little chunk. Wipes the mountains out, wipes, the other side of Cuba out. But it's like, poor, you know, um, what's the place that got hit by the tornado and constantly gets hit by hurricanes? No, it'll come to my mind. But it's that Caribbean island that has two countries on it. One side, the people are the poorest people on the planet, and the other side are the richest people, right? So with that little segue, back to Kennedy. So, he becomes congressman, and senator, and he, his Joe Kennedy is dead, so he's next in line. So, and his daddy steals. He doesn't win. His daddy steals the election for him, right? And then he goes in power. Then he basically has the intellect and mind and the charisma, and he's high on the most amazing drugs. And he goes, listen, he's saying to himself, I'm going to be dead soon. So I can just do what they tell me to do, or I can go hog wild. And he writes this little speech with he plagiarizes America's greatest poet, and he actually has them write him a poem, and so Sandberg reads them right. So as a heralding claim, hey kids, this ain't gonna be the same thing. Ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for you. Well, the country has been milking the poor people since Christopher Columbus, right? And if you study the history of it, go to, you know, Howard Zinn's American History, you can see what, America has done for us and everybody who's been here. Right? Anyway, so, but Kennedy goes, I'm going to throw this on its ear. And he understands that we're heading into the Aquarian age, that this is going to happen, da 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 da. He goes, I want to be remembered, not just some picture on the wall of one of the presidents. No, I'm going down, but I'm going to go down. So he's having sex with Marilyn and every piece of quim he can grab his hands on, and he's smart. So he's like, let's get rid of the CIA. Let's do this. Let's, forget. He was one of the guys who put us in Vietnam to begin with. And they said, well, that's a bad mistake because he went there. He saw what it was. He knew the problem. He knew that, it was going to be perpetual war. He was going to try and break that, right? He knew all about the technology. He was there in Germany with Forrestal. He knew that we had free, okay, so we're going to get rid of the oil guys, and we're going to we're going to plug everyone's, electricity onto the grid, where the grid's going to be tapped into 0 point energy. And we're going to have, and that's where, the guys from JPL had this all lined up. Of course, they were satanic, but still, they had this all lined up, and they were ready to go with it because they thought, oh well, this will be even better for Satan. So all of this stuff was, swishing around, and we were watching I Love Lucy, and seeing the Beatles, on Ed Sullivan, and listening to Dick Parr. If we could stay up past 11:30, and that was the beginning of the 60s. So Jack gets whacked, and he goes out almost, he knows he's either going to die of his maladies or someone's going to blow his brains out. Much better that way. Boom, you're gone. You know? And why they whacked him in Dallas, it was LBJ's town, and he wanted that sucker because he knew he wasn't going to be vice president. And he knew the minute he wasn't vice president, he was going to be indicted because he had done so much bad stuff, and he was such a mean ass dude. And so he was number one. The oil guys were number two, which was Mr. Bush, who was in the CIA, and he was one of the guys who reconstituted the CIA from what Jack wanted to get rid of. You know, the Dulles brothers, they had to do it from, they had to be the sock puppets, but they couldn't be at the seat of power. You guys need to go see the movie Vice about Dick Cheney because that says it all there. And they have this one in the middle, where he could have gone off into the sunset. He's having like his fifth heart attack, and Jimmy Carter comes in, and he doesn't, so him and Rummy go into the sunset, and they start writing, putting the credits on, and what happens is, they jump to where, good old Mr. H gets into power, and he knows he can't at this moment because he couldn't even become a senator. So he had to get Ronald Reagan elected, and he'd be vice president, and he'd run the show, right? So they bring in Rummy and Dick back. Anyway, when they get that thing, it goes on about how he really becomes Dick Cheney, and not the other Dick Cheney. And there is this point in the movie where he's being asked to be vice president, and that's a know nothing job. But H was vice president, and he was the president, right? He kind of ran it, right? And so he was way in the background, and but he still ran it, and but he ran it for the hidden hand, right? He was just the power that shouldn't be. So there's this great scene in this movie, Vice, about Dick Cheney, that's in your theaters right now, where it's right at this tipping point where he goes to bed with his wife. And the relationship between he and his wife, is an amazing romantic, like Shakespearean thing. So what do? They have a scene from Shakespeare. I think it's either Othello or Hamlet or the one about the king who goes nuts, one or the other. But there's a scene in Shakespeare where obviously his wife is the power behind the man, and and he's humming and hawing about taking the reins, and they're in bed, and they take that scene right from Shakespeare. It's brilliant. The whole movie is brilliant. What makes a good movie? The script, then the actors, the director, and whenever you have a script written and then directed by the guy who wrote the script, so he has the full vision, right? And then you have a great crew, the cinematographer, the lighting, the costumes, everything, and that's why I loved being in movies. Was this collective, this love's co-creation thing. The thing that I couldn't stand about movies is that it took so frickin' long, years. And and the guys, I got into Neighbors and IATSE. Grandpa Stoll got me in there, and so did another, people I knew in the theater got me in there too because they wanted me to do things for them, so they got me in there, and that's pretty much why, through my whole life, I've had the opportunity to go through all these doors. That's why I'm taking all of it, because I can. And what I want out of it is a cadre, a clan, a group, a family, all my relations to finally step up out of the sandbox, and go into the play yard at least. So, so Jack, does a 90-degree turn. And he doesn't do a 180. He just does a 90, and he's going someplace. Where the fuck is that guy going? Right? And he's not going by the script. So that's why everybody and his brother was shooting at him in Dallas, and they had to get him before he got to that hall because he was going to disclose. His speech was going to be about the aliens, about the technology, about all of that. He was, the thing that Stephen Greer wants is that kind of disclosure. Kennedy was going to give it. That's why they blew his brains out. And it didn't. They didn't care. And I mean, if you, they had a, they had film cameras of every inch of the route, right? Just like a football game. They took movies of the whole thing, and there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot of film that you can get, like from once he gets off the airplane to just before he gets to Daily Square, because what you see is there were throngs of people, in Texas who wanted to wave at him. He was good. He was like a movie star. His beautiful wife and the governors in there with him. So, and it was a Democratic state. Yes, they could have not liked him for what he was doing, but they still thought he was our president. And but once they came into the blocks of the school, there was no more crowds. There's hardly anybody there. If you look at those pictures, there's nobody there. And the running boards. Usually, the president, his limousine had running boards, and they'd had 4 or 5 Secret Service guys as a shield on either side. Well, the car behind Jack's Lincoln was a '59 Cadillac, black caddy, right? And it had running boards, and it had like 6 Secret Service guys on either side, and LBJ was there, right? And so, he was waving behind, the president all through his city. But when they made that thing, those guys kind of ran up and got on either side, and LBJ was such a coward. He got into, he didn't stand and watch, or sit and watch. He was, hiding on the floorboards of the car, right? And so they make that, hairpin turn in front of the school depository and slow down to 2 miles an hour. By the book, you're not supposed to go any slower than 15 miles an hour, so no one can get a bead on you. And then they stopped in the perfect spot to get shot at and there were like guys every which way. This was like crossfire, right? And they took him out because he was going to go give the speech that Stephen Greer wants. And basically, if you compare England or Canada with the United States and flying saucers, our government leaks like a sieve about this stuff, right? But controlled through the media. So it can always be, plausible deniability. Whereas England and all of its other, Australia, blah, blah, those people say shit all the time. Their governments never spill the beans. They don't say anything. Their lips are sealed. Not in America. So they're controlling. So we're never going to have disclosure, right? The president's never going to say, "Oh, I'm going to tell you something," and you might get a little pissed off. And we're really sorry. We're really sorry. We kind of put you into a straitjacket and lied to you continuously and caused your children to die. And we're really sorry about that. That we poisoned you and radiated you and did all this stuff. We're really sorry. But hey, look, you're going to get a new TV, a really smart, this thing called smartphones. Hey, boy, isn't that great? And fast food's going to get even cheaper. So you're never going to see disclosure. And the reason Kennedy got blown away there was that they could do it there because it was LBJ's and the oil guy's town. And he was going to, spill the beans because he was like high on acid all the time. His shock, everything was open. So that these are all the little, this morning's little 54 minutes and 54 seconds. Here we get, there it is the beginning of the series of the Mythbusters, right? And I can tell you this story because I am your griot, your Sensei Al Bob. So let's see what you guys have been saying here. Let's see. Bob, my friend Douglas knows all about it. They drew those countries on napkins, high energy periods, and time thinning the veil. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yes, right, Marshall. Mr. Young, Seymour Hirsch wrote a great. Yes, he did. He did. And Hirsch was a great guy, but again, he was part of the cabal. That's for sure. There is no us versus them. Thank you, Mr. G. All is connected. Yes, all our relations. Steroids and a tan. That's right. To a lot of nookie. Um, I picked Dick. Yes. Yeah, campaign slogan. I mean, they did it to this guy. Oh, it was so sad. Oh. Hey there, sis. What's up? Oh, you're a sweetheart. Yeah, one less thing for me to worry about. Okay. I appreciate it, sis. Yep, I'm in the middle of a chat, so I'm going to get back to that. Okay. Love you, baby. Are we still here? Yeah, there, Mr. Research. Can you hear me? Can you hear me now? We were interrupted by, as my mother would say, a very important phone call. So, Hirsch was amazing with what he uncovered. Yep, good. Okay. So, 57 minutes and 12. So my new, we have the 40 days and 40 night window, which is still, we're not over that because time is slowing down. And in the, I guess it was 2 evenings or 3 evenings ago, maybe New Year's Eve or the eve before New Year's Eve, we had a very interesting chat. Again, about 3 hours, but we kept having these moments where, oh, I'd be just prattling on, and it would be like going to the dentist. It was like, 40 minutes or 30 minutes. And then you guys started commenting on stuff, and it felt like, that conversation felt like an hour long, but I look at it and it'd be like 10 minutes. And so time was slowing, speeding, slowing, speeding, slowing. And, every time I do one of these things, I do a shamanic ceremony. I meditate. I do a whole bunch of things in my shamanic. I have a little shamanic hogan, a sweat lodge in my you know superconscious mind. And I do ceremony there because it's a sacred spot in my sanctuary, and and I'm realizing that time and space are relevant. You don't need to come the big green, which will be nice. If, I'm going to go back to this. If we're not on the road doing something in colleges and towns and cities, just like the Dharma bums did. I mean, they were one of the reasons why the 50s turned into the 60s, which turned into the 70s. And they were really one of those linchpin turning points. And it was just a bunch of guys in an old school bus that had forward written on the front. So, what they were doing was developing an alternative aesthetic. They had a poet, they had a griot, they had a sensei, you know, and they had a great time. Anyway, so we're busting myths here, right? So, bottom line, there is no death, right? And you have this avatar here, And I keep saying, oh, this is our avatar and our consciousness is in a server someplace. Well, the server isn't like in the AT&T long lines like they had in the new version of the X Files, which, Chris Carter, he's the man. He keeps pumping it out, even with 20-year hiatuses. So it's not like that. That, where our that server is another avatar. It's kind of known as a light body or an energy body, right? And that's why when we die, and we go to the other side, and we see there's mom, there's dad, there's Uncle Louie, oh, there's my sweetie from seventh grade who got hit by a truck. Why we see them is that their energy bodies exist in another plane of existence. But we can, when we die and we're in our energy body is theirs as them. We can sense, we know that it's mom, dad, Uncle Louie, and my seventh grade sweetie, but we don't because we're still, not up here. We are here a lot higher than down here, where we are in this mud puppet. Um, so that's kind of, myth one, we don't die. Myth two, there is no God, a guy in a big seat. That's a business plan run by the hidden hand to get you to do whatever they say because you're scared, right? Religion is to keep you in a non-stop, continuous frame of fear, right? There is no heaven because heaven is actually right here. Heaven is what you make of it. If you go read Buddha, go read Vishnu, go read Jesus, and it's pretty amazing that all those morons who were fishermen who couldn't even wipe their butt wrote things that became the Bible. Really think so? I don't think so. It's not the word of God, especially when there was like 900 years where the Catholic Church wouldn't let anyone learn how to read or do math. So they had a bunch of monkeys with typewriters, copying they weren't going to let you know, the Xerox machine out. No, that was only for the Pope. So, and the best, spy organization on the planet is in, the city of Rome in the Catholic Church. And they have all this, they own science, they own NASA. You know what NASA stands for? Never a straight answer. It's on the moon. They just didn't want to show Neil walking on it, right? Because a lot of things would, the jig would have been up. So and that's how, the powers that shouldn't be do this. That's what Goebbels, who really made propaganda. People were always using propaganda, but he turned it into an art form, and he said, you know, how you really fool the people is you give them 60%. Wrap your lie in truth. So Donald Trump's big lie, you know, and he goes on about fake news. Well, man, news has been fake since Mesopotamia. Since they were chiseling the stuff in stone, and the only reason they went from stone to paper was paper was a lot easier to make, and all you did was take hemp, put it into a frame, pour water on it, squish it, put it in the sun, it turned into paper. Not the way we make paper, cutting down trees and adding the most disgusting chemicals and fouling our rivers and air. Um, so 1 hour and 3 minutes. Okay, what are you guys saying here? Interesting about the scheme monks of the Orthodox Church, and I know the aesthetics of everything there. A group prayer, knock out a monkey and brain. Yep, exactly. Mr. The ride is right on there. Let's read us what Ride said out loud. It's interesting about the Shaman monks of the Orthodox Church. They know that aesthetics are everything. They are a group, and prayer knock out the monkey in the brain. It's an alchemical cadre. Exactly. That is us. We have to make, and that's why Putin's an interesting guy because he's like an old school dude, and the Orthodox Church. Why did the head of the Russian Orthodox Church? Why did he get to go to Antarctica, right? Whereas the Pope didn't go. He sent some of his emissaries, but he didn't go. He sent some of the scientists, and that's what's going to be me. That's what Cardinal Cushing wanted me to be, was a rocket scientist for the Pope. But, Tweety Bird, he don't know me too well, do he? So that is yes, that you get a gold star on that one, Mr. Ride. Then Ride says, and the thing with the Orthodoxy is that they read the old text, not the translations. That's a correcto mundo. So for what it's worth. So what's the big story that you guys got, smitten by me on John's channel was the old crone, right? And what was I doing? I was in the Orthodox Library of Trinity in Dublin, Ireland, and that's where they moved the Library of Alexandria, or good parts of it. And that's one of the books I was looking at. I was looking at, what made, a druid. What made the old crone. And I was looking at it before I even met this bag lady, right? And she brought me into, how do you think I, shamanically, you know, do this with you guys, right? Because, you know, she opened the door for me, with the use of those teas. And when I drank the third pot, you know, that was my ego getting the better of me. If I hadn't, you know, drank that third pot, I'd probably still be in Ireland. I'd be something else. I wouldn't be your Sensei Al Bob. I'd be, Merlin the Gray or White. I'd be something else. That's for sure. So we all have a path, and we all walk it. And all we have to do, as Buddha said, is wake the fuck up. And so the next, I don't know, I did 20 or 30 of those um, things for Johnny Boy. And I can't, bemoan the fact that, you know, he made money off it. He did this, he did that. Well, I would not be talking to you guys if John Boy hadn't, taken advantage of me. And then kind of, I wouldn't be talking to you guys if John hadn't like thrown me under the bus all those times. And those were kind of things that brought me to you, you know. Snake tongue in the logo. Yes, it does. Propaganda genius. Yes, and he got that straight from. There was a thing called the Tavistock Institute, which have brought psychology. That's where MK Ultra came from. Tavistock Institute. Go look that one up, right? And Freud's nephew invented modern propaganda, and it was done under the helm of English intelligence, MI6, and you know, Trotsky and Lenin in Russia and fermented the Russian Revolution. They put all of the guys around Adolf and then put him in ceremony. You know, to hear, yes, through unreal what he did and his legacy carried over to here. Said with wish propaganda was outlawed. The only reason fake news was repeated so often was because we're waking up to the fake news. Yes, they needed to dilute the meaning of fake news. Exactly. I mean, it's so obvious that Donnie, he's not our saving angel. They got pictures of him as an angel, really buff, and his flowing yellow. No, he is a sock puppet. He is the epitome of a sock puppet, right? And he is, the ersatz um, of Jack Kennedy. He is like, here we are. We have these 60 years. The two bookends are JFK on one side and Donnie on the other side. Yeah. Tavistock home. The Beatles. Yep. Yep. And MK Ultra and all things mind control. Right. There was an interesting TV show in the early O's. It was called Dark Skies, and again, it lasted two. It was really good. It was about these two college folk who graduate and they fall in love, and it's the '60s, and they get because they're the smartest and brightest. They get jobs, crappy jobs, in D.C. Our boy, he goes to work for a congressman, and his girlfriend goes to work in the White House for Jack, not for Jackie, but within Jackie's crew, and they stumble across, MJ12, the flying saucer thing, right? And what it's all about, in the end, it's very good because it's again definitely produced by MJ12 because there's so much information about it, and it shows again all of these lynch point moments, that we remember, the assassination of Jack Kennedy, the Beatles, the this, that these were all controlled media events to grab a hold of our consciousness and to put us into a hypnagogic state. And they, in the 2 years of the series that was allowed to be played, they really do. They bring it up to like the late '70s, and so it's really a very. You go find that. If you go on any of the platforms that you can look at videos of that TV shows, I'm sure it's there. And you should go look at Fringe. Should go look at Person of Interest. You should go look at this. There are a lot of TV shows. Lost. J.J. Abrams has been. He was tapped. Him and Steven Spielberg were tapped to. MJ12 let out about 30 seconds of the film of the landing of the aliens with Ike, right? And it was given to Steven Spielberg. And when you look at the real film of what happened and how Steven portrayed it, of course, Stevens is much better. But it's exactly the same thing. Meaning they left people here, we sent people off, blah, blah, blah. So here's where we're at this linchpin. And we're at, what Mr. Research and Mr. Ride are talking about, the thing with the orthodoxies that they read the old text, not the translations. They are building, they understand, the aesthetic, and it's an alchemical cadre. And that's what we are. We are a chemical cadre. And I'm just part of the cadre. Yes, I am your Sensei Al Bob. What does that mean? Sensei means teacher, not like some guru. Guru means teacher too, but not some god or. This is not a cult. We are not celebrating or putting me on up here. No, I'm just like Grandpa Smurf. Guy's been around a while, has some experience. Is slowed down enough to think of all the things that need to be done. And figure out a strategy. But you guys, you are there too. You are the cadre. So we're all together now, all together now, all together now, all together now. We're all for one, and we're like three musketeers. Let's see. All together now. Right. What? I guess 5-10%. Yep. Exactly, Mr. Ride. In the beginning, all things were dark. And what is black? What is the dark? It's the presence of every color in the universe, every spectrum, every frequency. That's black. That's why space is black. That's why matter is black. And that's why these little squares are black with your white writing. And that's right. And what is the light doing? It's giving perspective. It's illuminating the edges, the shadows. And see that, what's in the shadows is your name and the time you posted this. Can't believe Paul is dead. Well, they got a really good monkey to put in his place. And the other side of the coin is they had clones by that time and they were able to stick consciousnesses into them. The problem was, again, another really great show to watch is this TV show called Stargate. Because pretty much they put it out exactly what was going on. And Baal, the big badass who is Lucifer, who is the Lord. They call him Lord Baal. And that's where that came from, and vice versa. Art, imitating reality, and reality imitating art. So the greatest thing that guy did as a Snidely Whiplash villain was they keep beating him and he keeps coming back because he got this box that he gets rejuvenated, and as long as a little snake in his head, because that's the parasite. See, again, the real villains of that thing, the bodies, they get switched around. The body wears out, the parasite gets put in a new body, and so and that's what's running. The hidden hand are the parasites, right? But one of the great things of that show was so Baal kept, but he's a smart guy, a lot smarter than the other archons, gods. And they were like, a corporate state. Sometimes they worked together, sometimes they fought, right? But Baal, he played everybody against everybody. He was the tricky monkey. He really was. And he had a great sense of humor, and he didn't take himself that serious, but he'd been around so long when shit would happen. He goes, oh, really? I got to deal with this? So anyway, they keep beating him, beating him, beating him until they think they got him. And then he escapes. And what does he do? He hides in plain sight. He doesn't like fly off to another planet. He stays here on Earth, starts a corporation and that does pharmaceuticals, right? And computer chips and software, and he basically clones about 20 more of him, right? And the first clone, he's the next smartest. And they just keep going down until it's like the 23rd clone, and that guy can't even tie his shoes. And it then becomes a clown car, right? And that's where we are today. The powers that shouldn't be is one sad clown car, and all you have to look if you want to see the vivid reality of the clown car of the control structures. Just look at Donald Trump's White House, right? And then if you want to really see the other side, is look at the media. I mean, if the media really served the people like they say they do, they're the fourth estate. They're the unelected fourth estate. And they don't even go through the Senate, right? So if they really wanted to serve, ever, ever, ever put anything on the media about Donnie. Not his tweets, not his this, not his that. And all they would do is read what the Justice Department said, what the this department, what the arms of our government are telling the people, right? And then if they wanted to have these tables of talking about shit, have some smart folks like me telling them, well, what that just meant, right? I mean, that would be a good job. Hey, guys, put me in charge of media. I tell you, you'd get a much, because we would be developing an alternative aesthetic. Put me in charge of the National Endowment of the Arts. You got virtually got rid of it. Let's start this thing called Humanities Artist Trust International, right? And we can replace the energy department with the Institute for Aesthetically and Adept Appropriate Technologies. Anyway, that's where we're kind of strolling with this conversation. Spielberg is really talented. He is, and so is J.J. Abrams. So is what's his name, who did Eyes Wide Shut in 2001, Kubrick. But Kubrick, always played by his, and he ran by what I tried to run by. Never work for anybody unless they need you more than you do need them, right? Well, that worked out great, and he made, I don't know, 15. I mean, he did not make a movie that wasn't a friggin' classic. I mean, just Lucas. About 6 or 7 of his movies are pretty great. 2 or 3 are like classics, but the rest are schmucks, right? He was just doing it to get paid for the winery in California. Yep, yep, pretty much. That's why. See, and so Kubrick is a great example. So there's a guy who tried to do that, right? And build a new aesthetic, right? His films are, really talented vision of a new aesthetic. But because it was only one Stanley Kubrick, they blew his brains out, and that was the end of that, motif. Now, I don't want to be Stanley Kubrick and get my brains blown out, right? I want to be Sensei Albob, building the cadre of all our relations. So we all are doing this. So they can't just kill me and stop the flow, and we not take over, but immunize the powers that shouldn't be, immunize the hidden hand. So it will actually be that vehicle that serves love's co-creation. That's why we're doing this. That's why the 8 of you are watching this. That's why you are the cadre. And you are my clan, right? We don't belong to the clan. We individually, that's my clan. I'm, your clan, Grandpa, right? Every clan needs, Grandpa Smurf, who is the griot, who is, but they're more than one sensei because it's just the teacher, My kids and the folks that are, go down the chain of line of all our relations, my generations, they are also senseis because they are masters at what they do. They are masters at making that wood pot, or masters at turning that flint into a great blade, masters at building a bow, masters at taking that bow and taking down a deer in the most harmonic way so that deer doesn't suffer, boom, the deer is gone, and the deer shamanically knew that you were going to do that. That's why it didn't run away before. It just stood there. Bang, you took it out, it died without any pain. And its protein goes to all its relations. Now we've taken that off the hook with cows and chickens and the meat industry. And that is a satanic industry. That's a blood industry. And we get bathed in that blood. But boy, that hot dog tastes awful good, man. And I love that T-bone. And some people need to eat meat. You look at the Vedic medicine, we're all different. We all can't just be vegetarians, right? We sure don't want to eat soy. That would kill us for sure. It'd be better to make, that steak out of hemp. It'd probably be way better than soy. But soybeans are really easy to grow. But so is hemp. But hemp can't be putrefied like soy can. Okay, what are we saying here? Gotta run. Okay, Mr. Research. Love that you dropped in. It's always good to see ya. Let me start. Oh, no, no, no. We're gonna, let's see. Clan channel. Cult. Again, I have, I'm real stickler about words, right? And I think clan would be so much because it is one word that you can't really deconstruct, like liberal or progressive or moving forward. I mean, all these terms that I use, they've putrefied. But clan can't be, and that's why they, especially when we put it into juxtaposition, right? Or could be the all our relations network, however we want to put it. But I would think clan would be so. It's such a it has such a powerful incorrect assessment of what it is, that if you called it a clan TV, it would be, well, what? And if we, put all the smartest African Americans, and I'm an African American, you know, all our gene pool came from the swamp of Africa, and what I am is an African American that's melanin challenged, you know. So we have, the best music comes from Africa. The best ideas come from Africa. Who were the person? They were from Africa, Asia, right? So, you know, Jesus was an African American. Cult was just for fun. Catch up with you soon. I love you, buddy. And where is Buddy? I guess this is Buddy's sleeping time. He's on the other side of the planet. But he's in summertime now. That lucky stiff. Anyway. Anyway, it is 127 and 20. Well, we all have to get on to something. So this was a nice morning ramble, and I love that you're all here. So anyone, I'm going to bip off at 1:30. So anyone have any other great insights before we break for whatever we're going to go off and do? Go to sleep, go to work, go to have a meal, go take a shower. I haven't taken a shower in a month. Do. Anybody? Anybody got anything to say? Let's go back and see. Mr. Research had a lot of good things to say. So did you, G. Do. Dr. Ride, always a pleasure. I'm going to have to go look those monks up. I know about them, but I'm going to have to sharpen my pencil on them. And thank you, Dr. Ride, for that. Do. Steroids and tan. That's right, Brandon. Looking good. And you know what? What was that? Billy Crystal had a character on Saturday Night Live. He was better to look good than to feel good. No, I'm telling you, it's better to feel good. Do. Flow with the go. Exacte Monday. Here it is, 29 and 12. So a few more seconds. Love me, Marshall. Always ride. Miss Steph, let's alchemy turn that lead to gold. Yep, exactly. Turn our ugly bags of water into our golden spirit body. Yep, 29, 33. I love you guys. You make my day and night. That's why. Why do you think I keep doing this? You think I would do this? It was just my ego? No. You think I do this? No. I enjoy doing this. This is one of my fun parts of the day. It's when time stops and speeds up. Synchronicity is like always right in front of my face. And you guys bring the best out in me. I stopped being a moron. Okay, 1:30:05. So I'll just keep gushing about how much I love you and how we are making love's co-creation just so happy. It's like this little puppy dog just goes, oh, it's so well, yeah, you know. So we're doing good. 19, 20, 1:30, 22, 23. I love you guys. You just keep doing, leading by example. Here we go. 29, 30. I love you all.